I would like Evergreen to continue to be the kind of a college that's going to attract people who really want to get on an intellectual binge, who are looking for jobs, yes, but a place where we develop the mind and develop critical minds, because I think that critical minds can go any place in the world.
Pearl, thank you.
The Evergreen State College is a small liberal arts college located in southwestern Washington. Founded in 1967, its doors opening in 1971, it was set up with the express purpose of providing an alternative form of education to the public. Evergreen's experimental form of education did away with letter grades, instead providing students with in-depth feedback through narrative evaluations. Also, Evergreen structures classes around interdisciplinary models, where, for example, 3 teachers from an array of disciplines, such as history, poetry, and biology, can teach a single course that lasts for an entire year, immersing the student in a variety of disciplines and giving them the opportunity and tools to incorporate diverse schools of thought into a cohesive whole. Evergreen quick became known as something of an oddity in Washington state. While its spirit of quirkiness combined with its penchant for social progressivism, political action, and activism, and the occasional riot never quite won it the achievement of the bad boy of Washington colleges, it did certainly become known as the scruffy, somewhat orgiastic, and unbathed mottled sheep of the lot. This perception, though not unwarranted, was not always entirely fair. Evergreen Science and Humanities departments, well, they don't have departments, but whatever, have been known to produce individuals keenly suited to graduate programs, these students having gained valuable experience in both independent and group projects. In the spring of 2017, a series of protests live-streamed by the students launched Evergreen into the national eye, setting in stark relief the contentions in higher education between academics focused on classical education and those who center education on social justice. These two camps came to dramatic blows when Brett Weinstein, a professor of evolutionary biology, was protested outside his class by students who accused him of being racist. Their evidence derived from a series of emails he had written to question the methods and suggestions of the college's Equity Council, who had been working hard at the behest of the college president, George Bridges, to redesign the college's function around notions of diversity and equality of outcomes. Brett Weinstein was the first stop in a week-long series of protests, which culminated in students taking over the library and administration building, taking the senior administration hostage, and issuing a list of demands just as lengthy as they were self-contradicting. All of this was live-streamed onto the internet, and the aftermath resulted in the college shutting down for several days and moving its graduation ceremony 1 hour north. Since these events, the college has seen a dramatic drop in enrollment and is now often referenced by journalists and public intellectuals whenever similar protests start up on other campuses. I myself graduated from Evergreen 2 weeks after the protests and have worked over the past 2 years to show the public what was going on behind the scenes. And now I'm ready to present to you, in a distilled fashion, everything that I've discovered during this research. The next few videos, which will form, I hope, the capstone of my entire expose, will be based on the events of May 2017, but I will be going forward and backward from there to provide context for what's actually going on, and hopefully to show you guys not only what happened, but possibly what caused what happened to happen. So, without further ado, here's the complete Evergreen story. When did this trouble start for you?
I mean, throughout the year, it was pretty consistent, but it got really bad once I made that Facebook post. I was reading on Facebook, and it said, "Hey, people of color students, we are trying to have a class that's mainly people of color, brown and black, called MediaWorks." And what I did, with the help of a friend, was take the exact same post and just switch the race in it and the class in it, just to show that if you can say this about, this race, why can't you say it about this race? And so we put white instead, and then uploaded it, and then 300 something comments later that the entire school was not happy. I had people saying that I was a fragile white boy, and then I had others saying that I was a person of color that just wants to be white, and I don't act like people of color should. And then there was one event when I was in the greenery, and someone came up, stuck the hands on the table, got like this far from my face, and started yelling at me. And they were asking, "Are you going to stop being disrespectful?" And I asked, and I said, "Well, what do you mean by disrespectful?" And their response was, "Are you going to stop being disrespectful?" And I'm like, "I need you to tell me what you mean by that." And they were yelling. I was calm throughout the entire thing. And when they wouldn't respond, I'm like, "Then no, I won't stop being disrespectful because you won't answer." I went to the police after that, though.
What did you do there?
I just told them the events that happened, and I said, this was the person who was yelling at me, this is what was happening. And then what happened after was the other students were called in. This was after we left, and they had to go in and, give their confessions. Mm-hmm. And they like to say they were detained, but on one of the students' Facebook page, there's a video of what happened there, and at no point was there any detainment. It was a group of what looked like 30 students inside of police services hanging out, and one of the students that supposedly was detained and wasn't allowed to use the restroom or leave was walking freely about in the lobby, just chatting it up with people.
So yeah, to pretty much sum that up, a person of color felt threatened by other people of color, made a complaint, and it turned into one of the biggest reasons to start this big movement.
I think it was around the next week when there was meetings where students got together. It started out with discussions about what are the problems that people have on campus, and then how can we really qualify which claims are just emotional and which claims are really going on, so that we can figure out what issues we can specifically target. There was another meeting where Keave came in. He had some written statement about collectivism that I wish I could have heard, but students didn't want to hear it, and he was basically told to leave after a few words were spoken.
And then there was an email that came out from Wendy that invited people to go to this meeting to discuss what happened through Facebook. So I decided to go because I wanted to see if it had anything to do with Brett. This isn't directed at any professors or anything?
Well, there's some staff and faculty who have also, done and said anti-black things, like the whole email chain with Brett, the science faculty.
Have you read it yourself? Are you sure that's what it
I've
said?
read excerpts of it because my class is actually making a documentary that has that in it.
Who's your professor?
Naima.
I have a phrase called Black Girl in the Wilderness, right? Sort of to describe this profound isolation we feel as these sort of unruly, loudmouth women with the wrong hair and a lot of attitude, and a rabid dedication in our work towards education as an actually liberatory practice.
Day of Absence, Day of Presence is about discussing issues around inclusivity, around equity, around gender diversity, around sexual diversity, around religious diversity. So inevitably every year, at least one person will ask, well, why are we asking people who identify as white to meet here and people who identify as people of color to meet here? And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. It's because people of color and white people experience racism differently, and they're really different conversations.
We are having people of color stay on campus, and we are encouraging white staff, faculty, and students to go off campus in order to make the space at Evergreen more centered around people of color.
Throughout the years, they have never encouraged a race to leave. It's always been voluntary. And then on top of that, socially, it was not voluntary. Because if you chose not to leave or you chose to abstain from the event, you were called a racist and then, insulted just like Brett was.
Was it an ask or a tell? Because I think that's an important distinction.
Let's be very careful about this.
Yeah.
There was no implication that white people would not be allowed on campus.
Okay.
There was, however, the implication, when this finally was described, the implication was that white allies would be off campus. And therefore, there was the implication that if you were white and you showed up on campus, that you were therefore not an ally. And that is the thing that pushed me to respond. And what I said was, there is all the difference in the world between a population absenting themselves from a shared space and a population telling another population to go away. Mm-hmm. And my point was, speech has to be free on a college campus, and that everybody has to be free to be there. I thought that the point was so clear that it couldn't really be missed. And I was shocked at how far off the mark the response was.
And then after that, there was a meeting about trying to figure out what the next steps were going to be. There was one student that stood up during the meeting and said that all the things that are going on campus are not amounting to anything, and that things had to start changing quicker. And so they told the room that they were going to go start a do shit committee, and that was going to be in the other room. And anybody that wanted to do shit could join the do shit committee. That's when students brought up Weinstein's name. And then, in sort of just a moment's decision, they decided to protest Weinstein's class the next day.
So Monday happens, and I'm in class, and I've definitely got a lot of anxiety. I'm just like, whew, oh God, like this could break out at any moment. People are starting to get really weird at our school. Monday happened and everything was fine. I was like, okay, maybe it's all in my head. Everything's fine. And then Tuesday hit, and we get split up between different floors to do a activity.
And my group happened to be the largest, and we were on the 3rd floor.
And I had stayed in the classroom because there was one group meeting there. And then...
What were you talking about?
We were actually talking about defining words. So we were talking about what we were talking about, or making sure that we knew what we were saying.
At that moment, a group came in and they lined up against the front of the room and they just stared at us.
I start seeing students coming in with flyers, and they're asking for where Brett is. And my heart dropped. I was like immediately like, oh my gosh, it's happening.
This kid that I knew came in the room and handed me this Brett's email. And he told me that Brett was a racist and that I should read the email. And he was like really flustered and like really amped up. And he put them on all of our desks. And the people that I was in the discussion with, we were like, what is this? We had no idea what was going on.
I got up and I started running down the stairs to go find him. And there was a huge group of people coming upstairs. At first I thought I completely ran into somebody, until I kind of realized that they actually like sidestepped and got in front of me on purpose. And I kind of went, oh, I'm sorry. And this person was like, where are you going? What are you doing? Like, why are you leaving so fast? And got really aggressive. And I was like, I'm just going downstairs. I have a bunch of classmates downstairs. I'm going downstairs.
The crowd had cornered Brett into the corner of the hallway and were really crowding in on him.
First, they started trying to shut down my ability to speak, and then they started chanting stuff that was actually literally written on a page for them.
We come here as students against campus racism and against anti-blackness on campus. And we would like to reach out to students of color in the humanities as well as sciences that we are here to support. We want to dismantle anti-blackness campus-wide. We want to give some sense of solidarity and provide safety and outside
Will you listen to me? Yeah. Okay. No, not maybe, please. No, I would decide.
Go!
Okay. I am committed to equity. I'm as committed, I believe, as anyone on this campus. I happen to disagree with other folks on this campus about the way there. Okay? But I'm not an unreasonable person. I'm not uninterested. I'm not uninformed about history. I know the implications of these things. I have arrived where I've arrived from a different route. I've arrived there through academic study. I know why racism happens.
We live racism. We don't have to study it to understand it. We live it.
And the issue is you think scientific proves everything. What about all the racist scientific theories they had about black people for so long? Explain that.
May I answer?
No.
It is not your
Listen. You're going to listen.
You asked me a question. I would like to answer.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Red, white, tears, hey, hey! Ho, ho! Red, white, tears,
And in class we had talked a lot about when someone is the target of a witch hunt, they're put into this cartoon form, and then that is the narrative that they build up of this person. It doesn't matter anymore who they are or what they are, but this cartoon is used to the advantage of whoever is hunting the witches, and it's basically more of a strategic move than anything about this person. So Brett was trying to reason with the students and let them know that he wasn't this cartoon that maybe they had been taught he was, and kind of, well, yeah, just explain himself. And they weren't having it at all.
Debate means you are trying to win. Dialectic means you are using disagreement to discover what is true. I am not interested in debate. I am interested only in dialectic, which does mean I listen to you and you listen to me.
You don't have the email. We don't care what terms you want to
speak on. This is not about you.
I'm talking.
We are not
This is
speaking
all
on
about him.
terms- On terms of white privilege. This is not a discussion. You have lost that one.
I am talking about terms that serve the truth. Those are the terms. Listen, do you understand? History could pivot in this hallway right now. If oh my God! Listen to me. Yes, I know. And history could pivot in the direction of the values that you are standing here for.
Yeah, resign.
What?
Resign.
I'm not resigning.
Okay.
If I owe an apology, I will deliver it.
Wait, hey. Ho ho! Brett Weinstein's got to go. Hey, hey! Ho ho! Brett Weinstein's got to go. Hey!
At one point, they all kind of just left, and a couple of them were kind of like jumping and dancing around like it was it just seemed really bizarre, like a carnival type atmosphere, which was just really unsettling.
Oh, seriously?
You don't block me. Out of my way. Out of my way now.
Radio Evergreen 1, send backup from county immediately.